On to just pocket log in. Okay. I couldn't figure it out. So I didn't want to see Nice. Thank you so much.
I was like, I mean, it's short. I mean,
All right, I think everyone is back. So let's go ahead and get started. Might be missing one person. So my name is Ken Cogshaw. I am the Director of Admissions. I've spoken to a lot of you, met some of you already. So welcome. Thanks for being here. In addition to my duties as the Director of Admissions, I'm also the Title IX Coordinator, which I know you all know what that is, right? Really? I'm seeing some nods out there. Well, as Title IX Coordinator, it's my job to train students and employees on Title IX, which is what I'm doing today. And I have to ensure that the school is in compliance with the law, with Title IX. I receive any reports of potential Title IX violations. I then assess those reports, provide resources, whether those are, they might be legal resources, they might be just advisor in an advisory capacity. And then I have to stay up to date with the law and the training. So who has heard of Title IX? Can anyone tell me what it is? See that?
It's anti-discrimination laws.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. A lot of people, where Title IX has gotten the most attention is in women's collegiate sports. Because under Title IX, there has to be, you cannot discriminate on the basis of sex. So the case has been made in some colleges that unequal resources were being spent on men's athletic programs compared to women's athletic programs, and that's where it has gotten a lot of attention. But that's not all it is. It pertains to any school policy or activity or interaction that has to do with discrimination or harassment based on your sex or gender identity. So as you can see there, this includes sexual harassment, sexual violence, and sexual misconduct. And so the preamble for the Title IX Education Amendment of 1972 is that no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So it's any school that's receiving federal funds, which we are among those, has to adhere to the Title IX stipulations. So under Title IX, sex is defined as your biological sex, your gender identity, sexual orientation, or pregnancy. So you cannot, the school or, other members of your student body cannot discriminate or harass you based on those things, on any of those characteristics. It applies to all members of the CCMS community. That includes students and applicants, employees, and people of all genders. So the prohibited conduct includes discrimination based on sex, harassment based on sex, sexual and interpersonal offenses like rape, domestic violence, stalking, and retaliation, and we'll get into those just a little bit deeper. So discrimination, harassment, and retaliation are defined. Discrimination here, the focus is on sex. I say sex so many times in this presentation, it's really that starts to be embarrassing. But it also applies to all protected classifications. Harassment based on sex is a form of discrimination imposed on an unwanted condition on a person's education program. So that's, so that covers, anything between, harassment or discrimination from faculty or from fellow students. Retaliation, that is taking adverse action against someone who engaged in a protected activity. So, for example, if someone filed a report that, say, another student was sexually harassing them, and then the person that's being accused then retaliates against that person for the report, any kind of retaliation, that would then also qualify as a Title IX infraction. Does that make sense? So you can't take revenge on people. That's basically what that is. So here's a breakdown of sexual and interpersonal offenses. Most of them are pretty obvious. Rape, sexual battery, domestic violence, dating violence. One that I want to call your attention to, though, is the very last one there, and that's telecommunications harassment. And this goes back to something that President Lechner had touched upon when he was talking about chat rooms, and how when you put it in the chat room, it stays there. So, that's the point he was making, but the point I'm making is related to that, is that if you're harassing someone, you're making unwanted advances, talking dirty on Facebook or text messages or whatever, and that is unwanted, that counts. That counts. It doesn't have to be an actual physical act. It doesn't have to be face-to-face. If you're harassing them electronically, digitally, that counts. So be careful. So the Violence Against Women Act, Mr. Vintage will talk a little bit more about the Clery Act when he gets to the safety portion. But the Violence Against Women Act amends the Clery Act, and it requires us to report hate crimes, crimes of domestic violence. So the federal government keeps track of these things, and we have to make a report. And it's a real pain. So just behave yourselves and save me some trouble, okay? It also requires us to adopt institutional policies to prevent and respond to sexual violence or harassment. And we also have to have in place student discipline procedures in the event of an infraction. So, sexual activity requires consent. And so here you can see the different kind of parameters of what consent is. That means informed, that's freely and actively given, that's mutually understandable, and specific to the given situation. And consent, and here's another thing too, consent can be withdrawn at any time. when someone says, if they said yes before, but now they're saying no, no means no. Another way, consent cannot be given if, due to incapacitation, intimidation, or coercion. And here's another one too. A lot of, prior relationship or an activity, that doesn't mean consent. Just because you've had a sexual relationship with someone in the past doesn't give you the right to, continue that relationship if the opposite party doesn't give consent. Just because she's your ex-girlfriend doesn't mean that it's okay to start harassing her. Consent also cannot be inferred by silence. So reporting an incident. So anytime that there's any kind that you perceive that you've been harassed or discriminated against, we encourage you to file a report. And you can file a report with me, with Mr. Vintage, or you can file a report or at least tell any faculty or staff, and then they will report it to me, and then I will file the report. We encourage you to do that. And I'll just put this in here. I'm talking about this, and I don't want to, be scaring people. These kind of things are extraordinarily rare in school. Extraordinarily rare. I've talked to our attorney who has dealt with this thing, who has been our advisor on Title IX for 10, 12 years, and there's been like 3 incidents in that time, and 2 of which involved people that were not even students. So just to maybe put your mind at ease there. So then what happens when you make a report? So once you make a report, I'll write it up. Both parties get a copy of it. I assess it, and if it seems to rise to the level of a Title IX offense, then there's a couple different tracks we can take. One might involve us involving the attorney that I just mentioned. There might be a mutually agreed upon resolution. It might go to a full hearing, which involves a lengthy, drawn-out process. But what the process is designed to do is to protect the rights of the accused and the accuser. The accused has rights too. And just because somebody said that you did something doesn't mean that you did it. So we always want to make that plain, because we don't want to be a situation, you're on, the school is on so-and-so's side and they're not, protecting me, or, the other way around. So just, bear that in mind, that the accused has rights too. So some supportive measures that I can help you with is if you need access to medical or mental health treatment, access to off-campus resources, mutual restrictions on contact, that goes back to the mutually agreed upon resolution, and implementing interim measures, changing classes. We really can't change classes, but maybe transportation circumstances, or arrange, say, someone feels vulnerable walking to their car, we can figure out a way to maybe have someone walk with you, or things like that. So medical treatment and collection. So for victims of sexual and interpersonal offenses, you want to seek immediate medical evaluation. So this is going to be mostly within the instances of rape or sexual assault and battery. The exam could be administered at a hospital. The sooner it's reported, the better. And that's for a couple reasons. One is that it's more likely that evidence will be present. Also, you don't want to be in a situation where, and you see this in the papers, it happens all the time, someone is saying that they were raped, that so-and-so raped them, but that happened 2 years ago. Well, why didn't you come forward? I mean, it's not fair, but somehow that lessens the validity of the complaint in many people's eyes. It shouldn't, but it does. So, nonetheless, so the point here is to report the incident as quickly as you Date rape drugs, including roofies and GHB, may still be present and can be tested for, so that's another reason to do it quickly. And we can also, makes it easier to take inventory of where the evidence could be. So this is just kind of, kind of for your edification. So this is identifying relationship violence. So some of the red flags of relationship violence can include, if someone's trying to be overly controlling of another person, they're lying, there's evidence of physical or sexual abuse, respect, intimidation, dependent hostility. I mean, these are all things that as adults we should be able to recognize, but we got to spell them out for you. It's the law. There's also the issue of bystander intervention. Bystander is someone who witnesses an incident, and they can have a couple different paths or courses of action they can take. They can do nothing, they can act in a negative way, or provide assistance. So if you are a bystander, if you are, we never want you to endanger yourself. But one thing you can do if you think you're witnessing something, you can confront the situation, speak up. You can provide some kind of distraction, create some type of diversion, or ask for help. And that last one is probably, in terms of your own personal safety, it's probably the safest route. It may not be the most immediate solution, but as I said, don't put yourself in danger. Okay, so for more information on this, all this stuff is on our website. You can always contact me. Oh, that has Mallory on there. That should be me. But contact me, or as I said, Mr. Vintage, or any faculty or staff. Contact them, and it will eventually come to me, and I can assess the situation and help you with it. Cool? Got any questions? All right, that was easy. Okay. Mr. Vintage, let's welcome Mr. John Vintage to the stage. Let's hear it for him.
Good morning. How cool is it to be standing in front of all these people today? Goodness gracious, I just don't know what to do. All right, so I'd like to talk to you about safety today. Campus safety in particular. What you do when you're not on campus is not my problem, but be safe there too. Your mom will thank you, and probably your dad too. I don't know. So we'll talk a little bit about the Clery Act, a little bit about drugs and alcohol. It's not a tutorial, okay? So don't get too carried away here. Crime prevention, safety awareness, emergency notification and response, the kind of things that get sent to your cellular telephone. Something is going on here at campus that you might not want to be a part of. Title IX was already talked about. I don't feel the need to talk about that. Violence Against Women Act, has already been talked about, and bystander intervention. This is a lot of information. And if you should find yourself in a situation where you need to contact one of the CSAs that are here on campus about an incident that has happened, you might want to refer back to this. So on our website, we've actually got a tab at the very bottom of it for safety. It has all this information on it again so that you can peruse it more at your leisure. Now, the Clery Act is one of those things where when you see somebody's name attached to a piece of legislation, that usually means that something bad happened to that person, right? And their survivors have gone on to petition the government to enact some laws that would protect other people from befalling the same unfortunate instance. The Clery Act involved student-on-student crime at a university in Pennsylvania back in the early 90s, I want to say. And the Clery Act, when it came into use, required schools that receive federal money to do certain things. One of those things is to collect information about crimes that have happened on campus. We have to compile all of that information and put it into the annual security report, the ASR. And inside of that report, there are going to be any crimes that happened on campus within the past 3 years. There's also going to be any statements that the school has prepared, forgot the P in that one. Statements that the school has prepared about safety on campus. So a lot of the stuff that we're going to be looked at today, stuff that you look at with Mr. Kopshaw, is also covered in there. Another thing that the schools have to do to be in accordance with Clery Act is to make sure that we are issuing timely warnings and emergency communication with our students to keep them safe. And sometimes that takes the form of, don't come to school today, or there's a 2-hour delay, things like that. So we'll get more into that in just a little bit. So you're probably sitting there thinking, what does this have to do with me? It's got a lot to do with you. Hopefully it's not going to have too much to do with you if you find yourself the victim of a crime, or maybe the perpetrator of a crime. But I know that nobody in here is going to do that. We're all going to be adults, we're going to be civil, and we're going to make sure that my job is as boring as possible. Right? Right. That's what I like to hear. A lot of the time, crimes don't get reported to the police, which is unfortunate, but sometimes can be understandable given the nature of the crimes that get reported. If a crime of a sexual nature were to happen, it's not easy to talk about that stuff after it happens. There's a lot of reluctance on the part of the victim sometimes to get law enforcement involved with that. I can't really delve into the psychological reasoning for why that happens. I just know that that's a thing that sometimes happens. We, like I was saying before, publish and compile and publish data on any of the crimes that happen on campus. The campus security authorities are people like myself, people like Mr. Kopshaw, people like Ms. Combs back there, full-time school officials, people that are here all the time. They're your CSAs, so know them. If anything happens to you, you feel like it might be a crime, bring it to our attention so that we can take measures to rectify the situation. Even if you think it's a crime, but you're not sure that it's a crime, let us know. Because, hey, if it gave you the heebie-jeebies out in the parking lot, odds are there's something to that. You know, there's a part of our brain that knows, I think, well, most of us, that knows when something is going on that is wrong, or feels, I hate to use the word immoral because morality is such a subjective term, but I think that we can all agree on a baseline morality. There's just some things that you don't do in a polite society. If you know of a crime that has occurred on campus or near campus, that's what adjacent means, bring it to the information, to the notification of the CSA. Let us know about that so that we can put that into our reports also. That's another thing that's going to happen. Like I was saying, most everybody here at CCMS is a CSA. Myself, Ms. Dutko, Ms. Lee, all your full-time faculty are, full-time staff are as well. This does not include front desk employees. So, person that you talked to when you first came in, that was sitting in the little cubicle maybe behind the glass window, is not a CSA. She would just give us that information and we would go on it from there. Adjunct instructors, which you're going to have one in the first semester for accounting, is not a CSA. And any student employees are also not CSAs, so lab assistants, intake assistants, and any other students that the school hires, either informally or as part of federal work aid study, or work study aid, those people don't count. You can report the crime to anybody, but they will make sure that it gets to the appropriate person. Drugs and alcohol are prohibited on campus. I know it's a big surprise. Nobody was thinking that. They're like, yeah, this is college. This is a time where I'm going to experiment with mind-expanding drugs, things like that, right? You do that on your own time. You don't do it here at CCMS. Okay. We'll send you home if you come to school drunk, or if you come to school under the influence of some potent narcotic. I don't know what it is kids are doing these days. But yeah, we take a pretty hard stance on that. And the reason why, well, there's two reasons why. First of all is we're concerned about your safety. Gotta make sure you put that one at number one, right? Gives everybody a warm, fuzzy feeling. The second reason is we want that sweet, sweet federal money that comes as a part of being in compliance with a drug-free, alcohol-free campus. We get money for that, right? We would become ineligible for any government money that you might receive if we start racking up these violations, which we don't have any, fortunately, because we do take a hard stance on that. There is not to be any, and I love this one, the unlawful manufacture, distribution, or dispensing, no drug dealing, no possession of illicit drugs or alcohol on CCMS property. So that means if I come to school one day and I see an RV parked in the back parking lot, I'm going to investigate that. I want to make sure there's no meth labs blowing up the parking lot. We just built that new building. We don't want to demolish it just yet. Still new. Still got that new building smell to it. We like that. This last bit right here pertains to students who are in violation or get in trouble with the law with regard to drug use or alcohol. So, for instance, you're driving down the road, living your best life. Johnny Law's behind you in your rearview mirror, pulls you over, says you've been swerving. What's going on? They give you the field sobriety test, right? That's always fun. Say the alphabet backward. I can't do that sober. Never could. They find that you are operating the vehicle in an impaired state. They give you a DUI. It's not a good time for you. I've known people that have multiple DUIs, and I'm like, how are you still driving? Makes no sense. Blows my mind. But anyway, if you get some kind of a violation of that nature, you need to let the school know about it. And the biggest reason for that, really, is because many of you, most of you, will operate the vans that we use for lab. And if you got a bunch of DUIs on your license, we can't really insure you. We deal very closely with an insurance company. And if they tell us that you're not allowed to drive, you don't drive. What if you get into an accident and we didn't know that you had that DUI? Things just became really expensive for us. It's not a good position for anybody to be in, to be honest with you. Now, the effects of drugs and alcohol. Sometimes pretty groovy, right? Nobody says groovy anymore. I'm bringing it back. I'm not your dad. I don't need to tell you that it's bad to be expecting a child and to be partying it up, right? You want to give that kid the best possible chance in life. You don't want anything to happen to them as they're forming in the womb. But I'm basically just going to leave it at that. Drugs and alcohol will impair your ability to do a lot of things. To be a good student, to drive vehicles, to interact with people. It changes everything, but you know that already. You're grown-ups. I think most of you are grown-ups. Now, as far as the campus goes, this is a very safe campus. Like you've already heard, we don't have a lot of crime that happens here, fortunately. We do offer a lot of safety services. And the first thing is that we have a pretty wicked security system here. Every time I turn around, there's a guy on a ladder putting up a new camera. I'm like, what's next? Bars on the window? I don't know. But keep in mind that due to the surplus of cameras that we have here on campus, if you plan on breaking the law, or you plan on doing anything that you don't want caught on camera, odds are, better than not, that you're being recorded while you were here. It's being recorded right now. I'm being recorded right now, so that's scary. We all are on surveillance while you were here. Okay, there's no bad angles. I've checked them all out. We got new high definition cameras. It's fantastic. The campus is locked for your safety. Not this week. I don't know about next week. It's going to take a little while to get your security badges going. But until all those security badges have been activated, the school will be open to you. But once they're all activated, we're going to lock it down. So anytime that you enter the school, you're going to need your security badge in order to do that. And we lock the school down because we only want students and people that have business here coming to school. We don't want anybody with ill intentions coming to school and disrupting our lives, just in general. You've seen the news, you know how bad things can get. We're determined to avoid that here. Talked about the ID badges. See next slide. Panic alarms, we've got them. If we see something that's not right, we can covertly notify the authorities and they'll come running, hopefully. Police oftentimes patrol our campus, but usually they're across the street of St. X. There's the number of the local police department. Should you call them, we've got the non-emergency number, and of course you've got 911. Now, your ID badges need to be with you at all times once you get them, preferably around your neck. If you've got a lanyard of some sort, that's great. I keep mine on a little retractable doodad here on my belt so that it's always there ready to access so that I can go through all kinds of forbidden doors and stuff like that. Your badge is going to give you access to the exterior doors of the building. There's some rooms that students just aren't given access to willy-nilly, like the lab is one. Certain areas in the Educational Cremation Center are going to be behind a locked door. When you get that badge, you're going to sign an acknowledgement form to say that you got it, and if you lose it, you're going to have to pay 15 American dollars to get a new one. And I don't know about you, I wouldn't describe myself as cheap. I would describe myself as thrifty. I don't want to pay another $15 to get another badge that I lost because I was careless with it. So find some way to manage that, whether it's around your neck, on your belt, on your person, somehow. Now, once all those badges get activated, like I was saying, those doors are going to be locked, and you're going to have to use your badge to get into the school at all times. Now, we, just as a precaution, I'm not saying that this is a problem that we have here, but the campus, on average, is a very well-lit environment. But that doesn't mean that if you find yourself here later in the evenings, I know that sometimes we've got some lab sessions that run a little bit late on occasion. And especially in those winter months where the sunset is much earlier, and you might find yourself out in the parking lot at 5 o'clock in the evening, in the afternoon, and it's dark outside. And it's always a big shock to me when that time of the year arrives. It affects my SADS. We know it's seasonal affective disorder, right? That does bother me at first when we have those early dark times, or bedtimes, as I like to call them, because I'm old. Walk in groups. There is safety in numbers, and we want you to be safe. The next point talks about valuables and the management of valuables. For the most part, there's no reason why you should bring them to school. But there are some things that just inherently have value, like laptops, backpacks. A criminal sees a backpack someplace and they're like, well, they're next to a school, they're a student. There's probably textbooks in there that I might be able to get a little bit of money for. Textbooks, as you probably know, are expensive things. Criminals know that too. So what I'm saying is, if you leave anything in your car, make sure that it is concealed or in a compartment of the car where nobody can see it. I like to urge you to remove the temptation for anybody to break into your vehicle and steal your stuff. We don't want that to happen. You don't want that to happen. You're usually out a window when that happens, right? You gotta get that repaired. That costs you even more money, right? So try not to put yourself in that position. I don't know who carries a key ring anymore, but if you do have a key ring, any item that you carry with you regularly, it's not prudent to put your address on it. Key rings especially. It's like, okay, well here's a key, what does it go to? Oh, here's the address, this is the door that it opens. I bet you there's some good stuff in there that I'd like to steal. Don't put yourself in that position. Don't provide personal information over the phone. I'll tell you what, I get so many spam calls anymore. And recently, I've started to get a lot of spam text messages letting me know that my Netflix account has been not paid up. You know, they always, you can tell it's a spam because they have a bunch of garbage that's in it usually. Netflix has got varying letters that have, some of them are capitalized, some of them are not. It's like a 3-year-old wrote it, right? Somebody who really doesn't have a very strong command of the English language. But yeah, it's stuff like that. Phishing scams, things that you get in the email. You have to be very cautious about that stuff. Scrutinize that very closely. Make sure that somebody's not trying to pull one over on you. Has anybody here ever had their identification stolen, their ID? Yeah, I have too. That's not fun. It disrupts your life in so many ways. And I would like for as many of you to avoid that as humanly possible. Report any unusual circumstances. My favorite motto when it comes to this is, see something, say something. Even if you don't think it's, well, if you think it's a crime, but you're not sure, say something about it. Get another person's opinion about what just happened. Give them the facts so they can write it up. But see something, say something. Now, this part is about the ways that you would get notified of whether or not to come to school. It says if there is immediate threat to the health or safety of students and employees here at school, you should get some kind of a notification. And the ways that that usually happens are, you're going to get a mass email, you're probably going to get a mass text. You can always look on our website, and if you follow any of our social media, we're usually pretty good about putting that on the Facebooks, the TikToks. I'm just kidding, we don't have TikTok. We should though. You know, places like that is where you're going to find whether or not you should come to school. Now, use your imagination as to what the immediate threat might be. You know, we live in that age where we're worried about people with ill intentions coming to public places and doing as much damage as they possibly can. So hopefully, if that happens, somebody's got the presence of mind to do a quick text message spam with everybody. It's like, don't come to school, we're getting shot at right now. Don't do it, right? Hopefully you'll get that information in time. Now the other kinds of closings that we might have to do with disasters of a more natural form. Bad weather. People that aren't from here probably don't know that in the wintertime, it doesn't happen all the time, but in the wintertime, sometimes we get this white stuff that falls out of the sky. And it freaks everybody out, and everybody forgets how to drive. Happens in the rain too in Cincinnati. A little bit of rain should hit the ground, everybody starts to panic, and they immediately go 15 miles below the speed limit. It drives me nuts. I'm like, come on, let's go, I got places to be. But if the weather is so bad that we need to close school, we're gonna notify you about that. Or the other thing that might happen is we might go to a delay. Whether it's a 1 hour delay, 2 hour delay, cancel the morning classes, but have afternoon classes. That's the kind of stuff that you're gonna find out in these notifications. And you get all these notifications in the same way that you got the other ones. Now, I don't know how good we are about putting stuff on local news. We used to put it on Channel 12, WKRC. I almost said WKRP. That was a show. WKRP in Cincinnati. If you've never seen that show, it's worth watching. It is hilarious. But you're going to get all this information in all the usual ways. So keep a lookout for that.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Should we add that we no longer have the luxury of snow days? That typically a closure means we hold class via Zoom.
Ms. Ducktoad raises a very valid point. Ever since Zoom came out, my kids hate it too. They don't have snow days anymore. They're going to be glued to their computers, as you will be, so that we can give you instruction remotely. Isn't that wonderful?
So if you go to the syllabus option on the left side of your Populi page, when you're in a course, and click on syllabus, you'll see on the right links, and we will all have a Zoom link posted in that section.
Yep.
So it will live in each course and Populi. You'll always know where to find it.
Sometimes I just get people randomly joining my Zoom and I don't know why. Does that ever happen to any other instructors? Get a notification like so-and-so has joined your Zoom group. I'm like, okay, that's fantastic.
We're not as much fun as you, so they don't.
Yeah, I guess. They just want to be in my class all the time. So there are times, unfortunately, when we have to vacate the building. Could be due to fire, could be due to active shooter, lots of different scenarios where you might have to go. And if that should happen, this wasn't changed, but you're gonna have to change this yourself. If we find ourselves leaving this building for an emergency, did everybody see the little park that's next door? It's called the Stephanie Hummer Park. Pretty sure that's what it's called. And it's got a parking lot over there. But more interestingly enough, and the reason why I selected this as our rally point, is because it's got this nice earthen berm, this little hill that kind of provides cover in that parking lot. Now, historically, large mounds of earth have done a really good job at stopping bullets. Call me crazy, but it's true. And so that's why I selected that, because knowing the kind of perils that we face in the 21st century, I thought that was a wise place to go. So if you should have to leave the building, go over to that park, get into that parking lot, and stay there until we tell you that it is okay to come back to the building. Sometimes we'll do tests of the fire alarm system. We'll do fire drill just like in school, like elementary school and stuff like that. We might do that periodically, go over to that area, wait for me to come over and start checking names off. I want to make sure that I got everybody, right? That nobody is left in this building. If you think that there's an active shooter in the building and you find yourself leaving the building and law enforcement comes in, don't interact with the law enforcement. Let them come in and do their job. They're all amped up on adrenaline with itchy trigger fingers, and we don't want them accidentally injuring one of our students in the completion of their duties. Okay. So where are we going to meet? In the park, next door, not around back by the dumpster.
And their handout is correct
Oh, is
in
it?
their packet.
Oh, excellent. What kind of questions do you have for me regarding safety? Do you feel safe? You should. All right. I'd like to introduce myself. Again. In addition to wearing the safety hat, I also wear the clinical director hat. We often find ourselves wearing lots of hats around here. And part of being the clinical director is giving you information on day one about how your clinical experience is going to unfold here at CCMS. Next week, you will attend clinical orientation on whatever day that your lab is scheduled to happen, Monday through Friday. And that's going to be in Classroom C. Many of you are probably like, where the heck is Classroom C? Classroom C, if you were to go out these doors and follow this wall down, on the left-hand side is going to be a classroom that's got all these long tables in it. Looks like a chemistry lab because it was a chemistry lab. That's where our orientation is going to take place. You're going to love it. Lots of paperwork, lots of talking about the things that are going to happen in lab. That happens next week. And when I give you your lab assignment, you will then know when you need to attend orientation. That orientation will begin at 1 p.m. on the day that you have lab, right? 1 p.m. The second week, we're going to throw you in the fire. We are going to get you garbed up, get you some gloves on, shoe covers, some isolation gowns, eye protection, things like that. And we will have you assisting in lab. Good chances that you will be touching a dead person on the second week of lab. Really good chances. That's what you came here for, right? It's one of the reasons you came here, is to do the lab. So, some things that I recommend when it comes to lab is that you should have comfortable shoes. I have seen some crazy shoes worn in lab. Platforms, and I'm just like, why would you do this to yourself, right? Get you some nurse shoes, right? Research what nurses wear. Those are probably going to be your most comfortable shoes, your New Balances, right? Hopefully you've got an old pair of shoes, a pair of shoes that you don't mind burning after you're done. Because they're going to be gross. Comfortable shoes are a must. We provide scrubs. I may have to adjust our scrubs that we receive for a large class like this, but we'll see how it goes. I think we've got enough to get us started. Get yourself some eye protection. My favorite eye protection is a set of weed whacker goggles, right? Safety glasses that you get from Lowe's. Something that's got side shields on it. Because you know when you're going to get sprayed in the eye with embalming fluid? When you turn to talk to somebody, that's when you're going to get it. right? And it is no fun to get embalming fluid in your eye. Burns like fire. It will make you a believer in Vaseline and an iron station, yeah. Okay, so comfortable shoes, scrubs are provided. Get you some eye protection. We've got eye protection in the lab, but I know that some people might be kind of funny about the eye protection that's communal. You want something that's your own. You don't want something that's been collecting other people's ear cheese, right? That sounds pretty gross, doesn't it? So yeah, I like to have my own eye protection myself. Does anybody have any questions about stuff that happens in lab? I'm going to give you your clinical assignments, so you might want to note this stuff. And if I butcher your name, I'm sorry. If I use your dead name, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. It's just the information that I had on you. So on Monday, and this is going to take a minute for me to get through. On Monday, we've got Carson Baker. Carson, are you here? Just raise your hand when I call the name, and if you're here. Okay. I'm just trying to figure out who I actually have. Jeff Brewer. Sophia Camacho. Noah Carson. Hallie Goodson. Did I do that right? Or Hallie Baker? Don't see her much anymore. You should though. Kaylee Kremer. Aubrey Lyman. John Lambert II. I am also a second. Yeah, because people want to call you Junior. Not a junior. I'm a second. Kendall Mortimer. Tori Oldendick. Juan Silva. Maya Taft. Noah Triviano. You are all going to be on Monday lab with Mrs. Combs.
You poor souls. Sorry.
You're going to love it. On Tuesday, we have Talia Airy. Talia, I'm sorry. John Anderson. Jessica Bollinger. Jackson Cisco. Savannah Donaldson. Sap. Haley Finland. Susanna Haynes. Miranda Lester. Mariah McIntosh. There's a Maria. Maria McIntosh. My favorite apple. Savannah Rivera. Savannah Rivera. Ah. Brooke Spencer. Kyra Turner. Kira Turner. Anastasia West. You are going to be on Tuesday labs with Ms. Sharp. Wednesday, we have Kendra Allen, Maxwell Corbin, Elena Economos, Michelle Joyce, Mason Kriegel, Shauna Christ, Nicholas Pochatek. Did I do it? Pochatek. Ryan Porter. Gotcha. Stelina Skako. Molly Stromland. Joshua Phillips. You will be in Wednesday's lab with Ms. Foles. On Thursday, Kate Curry.
Oh, wait, Herbert?
Go by Herbert? Gotcha. Holland Ergens. Quinn Jacobs. Quinn Jacobs. There you are. Jocelyn Johnson. Did I do it right? Marissa Kelly. Ashley Menzer. Natalie Knoll. Olivia Rikoski. Is it Kaya or Kia? Rally. I'm looking, I'm like, Kia. Like a comic book sound effect. I'm sorry, I'm not belittling your name. I'm just,
okay.
I've been saying it that way in my head for like a week and a half.
Everyone says it whenever like substitute teachers would call me like Kayla. I'm like, there's not even half of those letters in my name, but sure, I'll respond to this.
Oh my goodness. Aaron Sexton Clankart. Aaron? You're not here?
Didn't show.
Didn't show. Well then. Nikki Schweier. Leah Sellers. Ashley Watson. You will be in Thursday afternoon lab with Ms. Holt. Lastly, Friday, we've got Madeline Adams. Is that you?
Yes.
Gotcha. Brianna Baker. Laquita Baker. Julianne Budzik. Katie Burnett. Hope Escalera. Abby Fahrenholtz. Desiree Harley. Devin Shoemaker. Joshua Snyder.
Didn't show.
Alexander Thurlow. Okay, you are going to all be in Friday lab with Ms. Sharp. As a reminder, Classroom C, for the people that have Monday lab, at 1 o'clock. We'll be in there with Ms. Combs for orientation. All right? Before I turn this over,
Good question from the lab assistant.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is the reason that I wasn't called because of that?
you got it. You got it. And that goes for you as well. Okay, so that is my part. I will see you all on Tuesday, I believe, as part of pathology. But I will turn each and every one of you into a hypochondriac. Yeah, I was like, I had a thought, and then I was like, I should step away. But yeah, I yield the floor to our ICCFA representatives.
Josh, I'm
Yes.
happy to say, Josh is a CCMS graduate.
Aha.
He just reminded me that 13 years ago today, he was sitting where you are. He's had a wonderful career in funeral service, initially at Meade and a funeral home, and now he works with funeral directors like a pre-arrangement company. So we are very proud of Josh and happy he's come back to represent this association. You're welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so honored to be here today. As Ms. Stefko said, you know, I am a former CCMS alumni, class of 2011, so just 13 short years ago. It's hard to believe, but sitting in those exact same seats as you are the day of my orientation. So you may be wondering, who is ICCFA? And, you know, why am I here to share this a little bit about him? Ms. Stefko gave me a great introduction. As she mentioned, I am a Ohio licensed funeral director in Baltimore. Started out working as an at-need director here in Cincinnati. And in 2014, I joined the Funeral Directors Life I've served many different roles with Funeral Directors Life, starting out as an active sales professional, working with funeral homes from Dayton all the way down to Cincinnati. I progressed in my career, and currently I serve as an active sales manager, where my main role is recruiting, hiring, training, managing, coaching, mentoring sales professionals. I have several funeral directors on my team, as well as full life insurance agents as well. So I'm honored to be here. And I'm excited to share with you about ICCFA. So to share a little bit about what that is, ICCFA stands for the International Cemetery, Cremation, and Funeral Association. We are one of the only international trade associations that welcomes and supports members from all corners of the death care profession. So no matter where you may end up in this profession, whether it is an at-need funeral director and embalmer, whether it's working at a cemetery, a crematory, or even selling breeding, ICCFA offers a lot of benefits to you. We are comprised of more than 10,000 members who are in the cemetery, crematory, and funeral home supplier professional related industries, as well as mortuary students and faculty. And that's why I'm here today. Our mission is simple. We want to provide exceptional education, networking, and legislative guidance in support of progressive death care professionals worldwide. So you may be wondering, why should I join ICCFA? Well, for one, there's exclusive member benefits that help you in your career. I can personally say from my experience, that's what's helped me the most. It's the educational opportunities that set me apart from others that have been applying for specific positions that I was. So with those educational training and certificate programs throughout the calendar year, and ICCFA members receive a discounted rate. So when we think about it, the funeral consumer that we're serving today is always changing. It's not the same consumer that we served 10 years ago, and it's certainly not going to be the same consumer that we serve 10 years from now. So being part of a corporation that offers training and support and guidance on how to serve these changing funeral consumers can really set you apart. There's also scholarship opportunities from the American Board of Funeral Service Education to attend some of the ICCFA events for free. And again, these are great networking opportunities as well as educational experiences. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on exactly what those events are. As a member, you also receive complimentary webinars where top leaders within the death care share their expertise. And you have access to webinar recordings after they have concluded. So obviously, while you're at CCMS, the number one goal you're trying to achieve is going through school, learning as much as you can, and attending your coursework. So having those recordings available that you can look at them on your own time is extremely valuable. You also gain access to online ICCFA's member portal, where you can read the latest issue of the association magazine, Memento Mori, and browse many magazine articles as well. And there's a lot more benefits that come along with it. So again, as I mentioned, I see the biggest benefit to ICCFA is the educational opportunities. With that, you receive discounts on cremation certification training, administrator, arranger, and operator, continuing education credits, as well as discount on training, or shelter training. So a lot of this you're going to walk away with when you leave CCMS, which is wonderful. But having that additional education that's available to you is extremely valuable. And as I previously mentioned, there's scholarships from the American Board of Funeral Service Education to help offset any costs of attending any of those meetings. So another huge benefit with ICCFA is the networking opportunities. At a lot of these events, you're exposed to professionals from all across the nation. This can allow you to open the door to possibilities that may or may not have even existed. Some of those events to note are the ICCFA Leadership Summit in collaboration with the Death Care Collective. And this specific event is designed specifically for forward-thinking leaders in the funeral profession. One of the events that I attended this year was the Dead Talks. And now that's catered specifically to sales professionals and family service counselors. But as I mentioned, the consumer that we're serving today is not the same that we once served, and it's not going to be the same as it is in the future. So even from an at-need side, that information is very valuable because it helps you see the way to talk to the changing consumer. how to present merchandise to them, how to talk about the value of having a service, the why behind funerals. It's very important to be on the forefront of that, and it really sets you apart from others. There's also the ICCFA Annual Convention and Expo. This is our flagship event where we gather for education, networking, and exhibits. If any of y'all have ever been to a state convention, it's very similar to that. And last but certainly not least, there's the ICCFA University. Now this is a 5-day event where students can enroll in one of the university's 8 colleges. So not necessarily you have to attend all 8, but you may find a college that's specific for what your current job is. Again, where you can network with local professionals and learn even more about how to do your job better. So one of the other benefits that comes along with being a member of ICCFA is the legislation, representation, and advocacy. Basically, what we do is what no cemetery or funeral home can do alone. And we speak to the entire funeral profession. So again, no matter what area of this profession you end up, ICCFA works with legal representation to ensure you're in the forefront of what's going on. We support legal and regulatory needs of our members. We regularly interact with numerous federal agencies. And also what we've done is we've created more than 24 novel guidelines advocating state legislation on a variety of consumer-related issues. For anybody who's ever had to try to dig into their state's revised code, it can be very troubling to try to figure out exactly what it means. But we've kind of broken that down on specific consumer-related issues. Basically, what we like to do is to keep members informed on relative legislative and legal activities through the Washington Report. We utilize wireless and social media channels, as well as help with our lobby firm located in the heart of Washington, D.C. All of this is to help provide legislative representation and advocacy for our members. So you may be wondering, how can I join ICCFA? Well, first of all, I want to mention that ICCFA membership for students is completely free. There's absolutely no cost to join, and you get all the benefits that I've recently talked about. So I believe I can get you, if we don't already have a registration form for you, I can get that for you. Or you can simply go online to iccfa.com/join, download the registration form. All you're going to do on that is provide the college, Cincinnati College of Mortuary Science that you're currently attending, and you're going to email that to our membership manager, Cindy Hitton, and there is her email address. Again, I can get you more of this information, that way you have it. This is a great opportunity. Again, it's completely free. It doesn't cost anything to you. We're also on several different social media platforms. Again, just so you can kind of stay in the know, please follow us. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. Just kind of keeps you in the know on what's going on within the ICCFA. So I'd like to thank you all very much for your time today and let me share with you a little bit about ICCFA and the value that it has for you. You know, I may be biased, but I truly believe that the Cincinnati College of Mortuary Science is the best mortuary college in the nation, and you have the best instructors. So my advice to everybody is to be a sponge. While you're here, learn as much as you can, take in as much advice as you can, because it's only going to set you apart as you start your career in this great profession. Thank you so much for your time. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
And Josh, if there's anything you want to give to them,
Yes.
feel free to send it to me, and I can do a mass class email.
Perfect. I will certainly do that. I know Kevin Gaffney, who is another ICCFA representative, he was going to email the registration form. So I'm not sure if that's happened yet, but if it hasn't, I'll make sure that it does, so that way you all have it. Again, it's online, so you can easily download it and just email it back if you'd like to join. It's completely free. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ken. That's great. All right, so we're getting close to wrapping up the presentation, and we're going to take some questions in a little while. Just a few things to go over here that Mr. Day and I are going to go over. One is forms completion. So, like we talked about at the beginning, like Dr. Webster said, if you have any, whatever forms you have, even if it's just your yellow form and you don't owe us anything, we still need that back. So, and then also your student surveys, your new student survey, which is in your packet, make sure you complete that and turn that in too. And I think what we'll do is we'll have, like me and somebody else will be stationed at the doors here. So as you leave the auditorium, we'll just collect those from you. So make sure you do that. Second thing I want to let you know, so your badges are going to be on the table where you checked in. But your picture won't be on them yet. So you'll have to come back. I would recommend you come back, when you're on campus sometime next week, stop by the front desk and Brittany will put your picture on your badge too. And did everyone get their picture taken? Okay, so if you haven't, make sure you see Brittany before you leave and get that done as well. But in any event, you'll need that badge to get in on Monday. Otherwise, you'll be standing out there ringing the bell knocking. So, does that make sense? Okay, cool. All right.
So the first item that was reluctantly handed off to me is the
I
parking.
didn't reluctantly hand it off.
You go ahead and give it to me, I reluctantly accepted it, I'm sorry. Parking. So we now have a nice new parking lot. I'm sure none of you know what we had here before, but we've got a lot more space now. And it's all opened up finally. And we would ask that you park in the small lot next to the pump house. And you're probably thinking, what door of the pump house? Well, that's that little building that you drove around as you pulled into the parking lot this morning. So there's a small lot right next to it. And I know that's not gonna hold 60-some cars. So your overflow will go toward the back lot. We ask that you maintain the north lot for those Lewis and Clark types. The north lot is outside these front, this very front entrance. We ask that you leave that for staff and faculty. We also ask that you would leave the area right in front of the main entrance on either side open for staff, faculty, and visitors, okay? We have professional guests here often, and we just like to keep that open. If you do need a handicap space, there are handicap spaces just next to the portico, and that's an acceptable reason to use that area. Any questions on that? All right, well, while we're talking about parking, we talked about designated smoking area, because we're not allowed to smoke in the building, and we have to maintain some distance from the building in order to smoke. So I was gonna ask if we have any smokers in here, but I know nobody would admit to it yet, so I'm not quite that comfortable. I did it for a very long time, and I wouldn't want to be the only one with my hand up, so I'm not gonna ask you. So the designated smoking area is the back parking lot. And if you are smoking, you should maintain a 50-foot distance from the building. There's a nice little shaded area. Right now it's pretty warm outside. There's a shaded area over by the dumpsters, and I'm not trying to put you over by the dumpsters if you're a smoker, but if you choose to go to the shaded area, that's where you're gonna be. Any questions on smoking areas? Okay. Keeping your campus tidy. This is your campus. This is my campus. Mr. Vintage, Ms. Combs. We're very proud of it. I know you're going to become very proud of it. So let's just start off on the right foot. Clean up after yourself, and we'll keep it that way. Okay? And then contacting faculty, staff. Outside this door and toward the exit door is, on your left will be a hallway that is badge access only to staff and faculty, and there's a phone hanging next to it. Next to that phone, there is a little spreadsheet that's got each staff or faculty member's name on it and an extension code. Pick up the phone, dial that extension code, and it'll ring their office. I Unfortunately, as Mr. Bennett said, we all wear a lot of hats, so we're not always in the office at the time. But if we're there, we'll pick it up, and that's a quick way, we're there to get in touch with us. There's also a similar setup with a phone on a desk in the lobby, and you can call from there. If you do not get a hold of one of us that way, you can always email us, or you can talk to the receptionist, Brittany, and leave a message for us, and we will do our very best to return that. Okay? Any questions on that? No questions. Okay, I got it. I do want to reiterate revisit the food policy. The student lounge that Ms. Ross mentioned is actually not accessible yet. And we're very close, but it's not accessible yet. So I don't want you to think you can just walk over there and sit down, whatever. What you can do from this point until that becomes reality is Classroom C, and that's where the restorative art is, that was formerly a chemistry lab, because it's the only place in this building with a hard surface floor. We've designated that as a temporary student lounge. So you're welcome to go in there. There's a refrigerator, there's a vending machine, a microwave, and a coffee maker. You can bring your lunch in, throw it in the refrigerator, whatever. The only thing we ask is, again, keep the space tidy, because we do have classes in there. And because we have classes in there, you can't interrupt those classes. So even if you think, I'm just gonna sneak in, grab my drink out of here real quick, I'll be quiet, please don't. It just takes the slightest distraction sometimes for people to miss, one important bit of information. Okay, so any questions on that? All right, I'm the bearer of all the good news. Excellent. Well, then, I guess we are nearly complete. But I'm not leaving. I'm gonna invite Mrs. Holmes here with some student ambassadors, and we'll take all your questions. I know you're gonna have lots of them. Nobody's gonna be shy, right? Ask your questions, and our student ambassadors will do their best to answer them for you.
We're almost done.
This is the good cop, bad cop show, and.
We haven't figured out if it's a good cop or a bad cop yet.
Yes, we have.
All right, so you guys have gotten a lot of information today. I'm not gonna say that all of it's the most exciting information. I know that some of you are like, sounds like wah, 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 wah. Okay, here's your chance. And I will say that every time we've done orientation, you guys all look like you do now, with deer in the headlights look. But right now, this one, your opportunity to ask that wild question that's been sitting in the back of your little skull to these fine students. They are not paid to be here. I'm actually surprised that this one even showed up. But they are starting their third semester. They've been here a hot minute. They know about, Discord being the devil and all the drama that arises inevitably. So we have Lauren, who's lab assistant, Lakin, who's just Lakin, and Loudon, who's loud.
Something like that.
So, any questions? They don't have to do with anything we even talk. You could ask them how the weather is.
You got one already.
Are you the one of you first generation?
Yes.
I am.
Actually, all three of us.
Well, either one. When did you know that I could do this?
Well, I was always interested in it, and then I came to school and everything just kind of started to make sense. Obviously classes can be hard, but I feel like it started to become easier and made me feel really confident in it.
I worked before I started attending this college, and so I kind of had a little bit more hands-on experience before coming here. But then, during first semester, I realized that I really enjoyed what I was learning here, and I was really interested in it. It wasn't like, oh, I have to take this class because I have to. It was more like, oh, this actually pertains to my field that I'm interested in, and I just feel like.
Yeah, I'm the same as her.
Okay.
Something that shocked you the most when it came to like your first lab experience with it.
See, those are the questions that I was looking for. Nobody wants to ask. They want to know.
What shocked you? Like something like maybe you had preparation and you like kind of had some clinical, but like you did not expect it maybe to shock you.
I think what surprised me the most about lab was how immediately we were pretty hands-on. Just because I came from no experience and they were like, okay, do this. And then you learn about it and you practice it, you get better at it. And it just all happens very quickly.
I think that there's a lot of like different techniques that you can use in lab, and you don't really realize it. You kind of think it's like you have to do this task, and so you just go at it. But everyone has a different method of doing something in lab, and so it's interesting seeing like your fellow like classmates and like your instructor's way of doing things.
I think for me, it was like being able to do things different ways and learning from not only our professors, but also like other students too. I've learned multiple things from other students that have prior funeral home experience, and even some students who didn't have funeral home experience coming into it. So that was the biggest thing for me.
So I know a lot of our bodies at PA are donated. How often are we looking at maybe trauma cases or autopsy cases or cases that you would normally see out in the regular field?
Most of our cases are not super trauma heavy. We occasionally have an autopsy. I think maybe while I've been here, we've had like 4 or 5. It just kind of depends on, what comes in and what we get to handle. It varies week by week, day by day even. So we get a variety.
I think what also kind of contributes to that is like usually if they're like a traumatic death, usually the family kind of wants to have more closure and like have like a service at funeral home, I think as well. So they kind of take away the opportunity for us.
I would add to that cases that other than our donors have not been solicited very heavily. We've got to maintain a good relationship with many area funeral homes, but we've kind of stepped back a little bit because of the interruptions that the construction of the new building has caused to the lab. And I know now that that's almost complete, Mr. Bennett will be working very hard to renew some of those relationships and bring that back in. But kind of reiterate what Lauren said is that no matter what, it's always going to vary. Just like when you get in a funeral home, it's going to vary. If you get traumatic cases or not. I know there was a time when I was in a funeral home where I got, I think, 4 very traumatic cases in a week, and then went months and months without ever seeing them. So it's going to vary, but again, I hope I would like to see that picked up just for your educational value.
You guys occasionally get decom cases?
Sometimes. Again, it just depends on the status of the donors that come in. So we do sometimes, but not super often.
I know, because they're donors, they're most likely adults, I assume, but do you ever work on, a deceased child? And if so, because obviously you would in the real world, so is that just scaled down? Or, how does that work?
I personally have not. I feel like the possibility could be out there, especially with funeral home cases that come in. But I personally have not. I don't know about any of you all.
It does happen, but those are generally going to be an outside case rather than a donor case. My first semester here, first semester, I was maybe 2/3 of the way through, and we had a funeral home case that involved a toddler and an infant. And that was, me being a parent, that was kind of shocking. But it also, it made me realize, you know, the compassion I can have. So yeah, it does happen. It's not very common.
What would you guys say was the hardest class for you being
I'm gonna say probably business law.
Cody, you guys better look at this phone. You don't have to look at this face. You're gonna see it way too often. It's gonna hurt your soul.
For the next 12 months. I'll wait till Monday to scare you the rest of the way.
For me, it definitely was one of Mr. Kindo's classes, but also I thought that microbiology and pathology was a little difficult, even though it was really interesting and cool to learn.
I thought for me it was definitely the law classes, but also, this comes not all like this one, but historical, like learning all the different religions, that kind of
Historical is
just,
amazing.
it is. It just kind of like threw me off, and I mean, you just have so many different religions coming in one class, so.
But it has Egypt.
Yeah.
So, how did you, I understand that it's very academic, how did you manage your study time? What did you do?
For me, so I'm currently working in a funeral home. I'm not sure if you are. For me, it was very helpful working in a funeral home that didn't like force me to death. So they like gave me a lot of time to like actually study like that. I think just making a schedule for yourself helps out a lot too. Like have like set like study times and stuff like that. I mean that's helped me so far. So.
Yeah, kind of going on that. I try to set a schedule for myself. I try to study at least an hour a day, depending on the coursework that goes on. But I will have days where I just don't feel like studying. Feel like if I study, I'm not going to retain, and I will take, you know, a day to recoup because that's also important. And then study. But I feel like it's kind of easy to have a decent study work-life balance.
I think everyone's different. I kind of, if you just pay attention in class and like take good notes, that kind of is enough for me. And then just review it like once before like the quizzes and the tests and stuff. But obviously, you know, that's different for everyone. Like before I came here, a lot of people were like, you need to study like at least an hour or two every day, like because if you do want to retain it, it's like good for retention. But I think that the instructors do a good job at kind of drilling some stuff into your head for the NPE. Why are you looking at me like that?
What is one piece of just kind of advice in any area, or like something that maybe you wish you would know when you started, like academic lab, like whatever that looks like? I know it's kind of like a broad question, but I'm always curious, like one thing kind of like you wish you would know. You would recommend.
If you were them, what pertinent information would you want to convey to yourself?
I would initially start off and try to be very organized, like as organized as possible, because I feel like it makes it harder when you're not, because it is a lot of information you're being given. And that, if I would have been more organized from my start, I think I would be a little better off with not having to reorganize so much or try to figure out how I'm going to organize things. So yeah.
I don't know. I think that a lot of, like, especially with you guys, since you're a big class, we have a smaller class. I would recommend asking questions if you're confused and, like, you know, just read, like, it's not a stupid question if you reading, like, think it will help clarify things for you. I'm a serial question asker, so I really recommend doing that. And it helps kind of open up the air for everyone else to ask questions. Because I feel like a lot of people, when no one's asking questions, they kind of feel like they don't want to ask a question, you know?
I think mine would be come into it with an open mind. Don't think if you've done one thing in the past, like that's the only way of doing it. just come into it like willing to learn. Like if you have funeral home experience, like awesome, that's gonna be great. But also understand there's more funeral homes out there than just the one you've worked in so far. Everybody does it different. Yeah, that would be mine.
We didn't run out of questions yet. I know they're out there. Here we go.
Did you guys say that you guys use your personal laptop at all, or would you just
I feel like that's one of those things that kind of varies person to person. I'm somebody who has to write stuff out. I use my laptop for assignments and Quizlets and stuff like that, but in class, I don't really use mine all the time. Maybe in accounting, I did, but like that was pretty much it.
I'm big with writing stuff down. I think it really helps like me remember instead of like typing. But I know it's also nice to have like it on so you can just copy and paste it for making Quizlets and stuff like that. But it really is like personal preference, I think.
Yeah, I think the only class we'll use it for is accounting.
Yeah, I was like, obviously not listening. So.
How has your, so far, how has your opinion changed on the maybe like the death process or things like that since you started and where you are currently? That's kind of a tricky question.
For me, coming in with like no funeral home experience, I guess it made it more realistic to me because I think we think of death as one thing and then we see a lot and you're like, oh, it can be this, this, and this as well. I was raised pretty death positive. We talked about it in my family. So that conversation for me has always been out there. But I feel like it just showed me more things than I thought I knew or understood it when I first started.
I think that Miss Ducko's class is really good and impactful because it taught me a lot of just like, I don't know, just like personal, like psychological stuff that I never really thought about and like kind of put things into perspective. Like, because usually I think of like a caregiver standpoint and then she kind of helps like make you think about like the family and like the deceased themselves. And I thought that was really cool to like see the different points of view instead of just looking at it from my own.
I think for me, it's made me kind of want to go the extra mile for families just because that's the standard that everyone has here. Not saying that I didn't want to before, but just to go even further than what I thought I possibly could. And like I said, just because that's the professor's standards here and what they're teaching us, so.
I've heard the general consensus about taking like gen ed accounting classes has been really not fun. So how are the accounting classes here?
Turn the cat out of the bag.
Okay, so it is the same content, okay? However, it is taught very differently.
Yeah.
I think a lot of doing well in that course is learning how to study for it, because it's not like you get certain like terms that you have to know, like that's part of it, but you also have to know like how to like fill out all these like charts and stuff like that. That would be my biggest thing, and I hope he still does it, because I've told people about this already. If he offers the extra credit, do it. That's all I'm saying.
I didn't think it was that bad, but it did like take a while to kind of get into the groove of things, I think. I would just recommend like doing the homework because that would be like practice really helps you with that class because you're not doing the homework. You're not really gonna know how to like do things, and then he'll go over the homework, and if you have the wrong stuff, then you know you can just ask questions like why, and then he'll really help you go through that.
Yeah, my best tip when it comes to accounting is just practice. And we did a lot of study groups. If you find somebody who's good at it and are willing to help, I would take the help. Because sometimes things aren't always explained in a way that I understand things, because I was not good at accounting when I did my gen eds. So if you find somebody who's good at it and practice, it can make a big difference as well as extra credit. So.
I actually have, kind of going off a question for the faculty, because I know we don't operate on like a standard schedule here, but do you guys still have like office hours or meeting times available like before or after class? If you have like specific questions, when you need help with a certain topic?
Absolutely not.
That's a good
That's what I
question.
thought you were gonna say.
I think we all do a pretty good job trying to make ourselves available. As I said earlier, we're not parked at our desk all the time, but if you can communicate and be flexible with us, that'll go a long way. If we are in there, go to one of the phones I mentioned, and if we're there, answer, and there's a good chance that we can take you right then. As far as regular office hours, we all try to maintain pretty regular hours. Now, that's not going to say that one of us doesn't have a doctor's appointment and we're off campus one afternoon, but we do a pretty fair job of making ourselves available, I think.
I mean, one thing that works for me that might not work for Mr. Kendall is like if you chase me out of here after lecture and you're like, I want to ask you about my quiz. I'm usually like, okay, let's go do that now. You can always email. Feel pretty responsive.
Email is key, really is.
I know it's so old school. It's fine.
So, this, like, I don't know if you all are from here, students.
We're both dual licensed, unlicensed in Indiana.
What do you do to maintain your mental health?
You remember those substances that Mr.
Unfortunately, in this profession, that is common. You're going to learn that, through the lectures, you will learn that the funeral profession does have a high alcohol. That's not a healthy alcohol, but we, I think, find our own hobbies and our own outlets. And some of the most difficult cases I've looked at and had to work on, for me, it's been just that kind of compassion that I find within that gives me that strength. Go home knowing that I'm helping the family, but I still need an outlet. I still need hobbies.
There's a lot of actually, I don't know why that changed, but there's a lot of groups actually, and more recently, we have a pretty close relationship with Undertaking the Podcast. And they've just recently post like groups, there's like a once a month group that kind of meets on like a webinar or sort of like Zoom type meeting. There are resources out there if you just want to talk to somebody. You know what? You guys are all here for the same reason. Sometimes just getting some of that stuff off your chest to somebody who's willing to listen is pretty helpful. You guys have anything to add to that? As students, because
Yeah.
we're old and wrinkly.
I will always, if someone's really bothering me, I know I can talk to my classmates who I'm close with. Just because, again, we are in the same career field and we're here and we're experiencing a lot of the same things. And that can be really helpful just to get it off your chest, kind of like this Coma said. But also make time for yourself. Don't, just because you're in school, like, obviously school's important, but it's also important to take care of you, and it's important to know when you need to take a step back and say, okay, I can take a break of studying today to do something that's gonna make me feel better. I think that's really important in keeping up with your mental health.
Yeah. Nobody here is a machine. Nobody, as far as I know.
I'm rusted and broken down. I was going to add, though, too, that you'll learn about that. Some of this stuff is taking care of yourself, and just
Burnout.
how to burn out and how to watch for those signs. Healthy mechanisms to help you address your mental health. Does that answer fairly well?
I just found one, I keep asking my partner, what is a hobby that you have outside of all of this? Tell me your
Everything.
You know those substances?
For me, I enjoy the outdoors, so spring and summertime I enjoy fishing, and fall it's deer hunting season, so that's mine.
I like horror movies and anime and knitting.
I'm also a horror movie fan. I like to read. I don't do a whole ton of that during the semester. And then just being able to go out and hang out with all of my friends is really nice when you've had a hard week. So
I love Formula One racing, but whatever. And you'll hear Miss Dutko, who, surprise, surprise, she loves Formula One racing too. You'll hear us badger each other. I mean, Red Bull's a better team, but she's a Mercedes team.
Me, as I said, everything. I dabble in all kinds of things that I can do hands-on, do leather work, woodwork, stained glass, etc. A little bit of everything.
And he's a stockpile of like just stupid knowledge.
Or just and knowledgeable about things.
I know that you have kids, I don't know if you can do, but, how do you balance like the school from not school life?
Well, since I think I'm the only one up here right now with children, I'll take this one. I have one son, and I know I look like I'm 18, but my son is grown. He's 30 years old. So that doesn't affect us as much. And this funeral service, and then coming here to CCMS, being part of the staff and faculty, was a second career, and I guess this is actually a third career. So it didn't affect him much at all growing up. It didn't affect our relationship. I can't give you any insight to that.
Didn't your one, if you anything that you might add to that, like juggling this, coming to school here and having children?
How it affected you?
So I didn't have children when I came to school here, but I did have children when I took my master's program. And you just need to have some discipline and balance your schedule and your study time is off. I mean, you can make it work. I made it work. You made it work in your program. You just have to balance.
Is there any other parents in here? Yes. I got 3, and that was not helpful. But honestly, you know, it's already a little overwhelming starting, and it would be nice to create a support group or a study group for parents. I don't know how to do it.
yeah, we have a woman in our class who, Kelly has, 3 kids? And I'm sure if you meet her, she would probably feel comfortable talking about that. She, talks to us about her kids and stuff. And I'm sure she could give you guys some really helpful tips, better than us who don't have kids could. So.
If any parents are interested, I'm interested.
You guys are bonding already?
On average, when 11th grade students typically make, is it average, or is it typical for a student to have straight A's or straight B's?
I think
I don't know if you can answer that.
I think it's a healthy mix, as you'd find in any school. Some students it comes naturally for it. Some study hard enough that it looks like it comes naturally for it. And then you have some that don't do either of those, and they do more average grades. I think it's kind of a standard mix you might find in any school.
I will say that I think that the program's so rigorous, though, that if you're starting to fall behind, you need to get, some tutoring from your fellow classmates, or Ms. Tasha Ross can help you out. Don't fall behind, because it's a lot of information that you're getting in all 3 semesters. So don't get behind, it's gonna be real easy to fall behind. So if you're having issues, like, take care of them, like, right now. Anybody else?
So we come from a nursing background, do you experience burnout after you do nursing, like you do overwhelmed and you're on the shield?
Yeah, I think you definitely would. Obviously for different reasons, but I think it comes from the same place. As a nurse, you're a lot of burnout comes from the long hours, the compassion, the emotional time that we've done. The same, I think, is for you. It's just, you're there to say, as field professionals, we're there to help the group. We can't do anything for the deceased, we're there to help the group. So yeah, I think it's very similar. Yeah. And again, back to what I said about, finding healthy mechanisms to avoid that burnout or recognize it before it happens. And I think that
Anybody else? Anybody else? Last chance. Last chance. There it is.
I feel like that's kind of a personal preference. We have a couple in our class who keep theirs done, mine are done right now, they're about to come off. Just because for me it makes things a little harder. But I think like Michaela keeps hers like decently short and she has no issues. So it just, you can try it out and see, and I wouldn't make any decisions until you know, get a feel for it.
I think you'll figure it out as you go, like what kind of things you're doing with your hands that are gonna be easier or harder depending on that.
I don't remember if it was in student handbook or not, is there a handbook?
you respect
Yes.
more than anything. There will be certain days that you're required to dress professionally, and you'll be notified of those. So those would be days when you may have a field trip, or you may have a professional guest speaker. You will be requested to dress professionally, or you may be asked to dress maybe business casual. But there's generally speaking not a dress code other than be respectful. Think of it as the profession you're going into. I worked for a small funeral home, so I did a lot of maintenance around here. That didn't mean I wore the jeans I used to wear when I, was welding. I would wear nicer jeans and maybe a golf shirt as I worked around the funeral home. So think of it that way: is you want to look professional. Maybe on class days you're looking professional. As you expect, you should look as a professional off duty.
For everyday classes, I don't, and I would point you out, I don't see anybody today that there's anything wrong with it. But I have been known to very honestly, brutally point out clothing that is way too revealing. So don't do it, girl. There's
Remember when I said-
all 63 of you.
Remember when I said good cop, bad
I
cop?
do it to him all the time.
She's
Yeah, surprising. I know.
So she will point it out, anything she sees.
See a guy in short shorts? It's louder.
Why buy shorts when you can just wear your girlfriend's? It's easier.
Save the laundry.
That's right. She does it, not me.
Lambert, did you have a question?
I did have a question. So
I already know your name, that's a problem.
That's Michael, my brother, might be more of a problem.
He knows.
Oh, yeah. Gym clothes are frowned upon, and that's what I was gonna ask. If you're talking about like business casual, I can't wear my t-shirt and shorts that I'm wearing to go
For
to the gym,
days that are,
On a daily basis,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
but again, think about it, I guess where I kind of dropped off there, what I'm saying is, I like to see it where you imagine, like, you're at the funeral home, you're working, and somebody shows up unexpectedly. You don't wanna be in ripped up jeans, you don't wanna look like you just came out of the gym sweaty.
Business casual doesn't mean the suit and tie.
No, this is business, this is business professional.
Cool. That's all. Thank you.
All these guys look like they